Lights, camera, action.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another review, and today we're going to be talking about Hokum. So essentially this movie is about Adam Scott, plays a writer that goes to this little hotel in Ireland to scatter his parents' ashes, and while he's there he discovers a few things, and it leads to some pretty creepy stuff. We have finally made it to May. May has been my most anticipated month for this entire year for horror movies because we are stacked this month. There is a banger after banger after banger after banger every week. At least I hope they all end up being bangers, but all movies that I'm very much looking forward to. We started out with Hokum, and then, May 15th, we have Obsession, which I cannot wait for, along with, Passenger and Backrooms and all stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to all these movies. So I just want to say, first of all, going into this movie, I knew absolutely nothing. I avoided all the marketing. The only thing I ever saw for it was the very small little teaser trailer that they did, and that was enough to get me hooked. I watched it one time and never watched it again. So I didn't see the full trailer, so I didn't know. I just knew that it was Adam Scott and he was going to this place, and that was it. This movie comes to us from the director Damian McCarthy, who, if you have not seen his other two movies, I highly recommend them, Caveat and Oddity. Both are very, very great, and they have a great story to them, and the atmosphere, just like Hokum, is very much there, and they are both very creepy and very their own thing, and he brings something to the table that he's just a director that I will happily keep my eye on going forward. So we start off with this movie with a story that Adam Scott is actually writing, and so it kind of cuts a little bit back and forth, but even those small parts where it has him in his apartment, just the atmosphere and the vibe from that is just utterly creepy. And right from the get-go, you can tell that something's just quite off. Something's not right maybe with his character, or maybe it's just the vibe of this whole movie that just gives these absolutely creepy vibes. And then, of course, when he goes to the setting, which is our hotel, it also provides more creepy atmosphere and just a more of a creepy setting because you're in the middle of Ireland, in the middle of nowhere, and it involves this mystery, and things are just getting creepier and creepier, and it's so good. I actually saw this movie at a late showing last night, and I'm actually glad I went to the later showing because the more that the movie went on, I kept telling myself that this is one of those movies that would be great to turn on a rainy night at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and just get lost in it because it will truly take you somewhere and just really get under your skin. The atmosphere does such a great job. It builds this mood all throughout the movie that you are on the edge of your seat. You don't really know what's going to happen, and it keeps going with that and keeps building and building and building to eventually to the point where you're you're hoping that something's going to happen already because you're just waiting to get that tension off of you. But it does such a great job of building that it happens multiple times. There's really not a lot of room to breathe throughout the movie. There is in some parts, but for the most part, it kind of just hits the ground running and just takes you with it. Now, as for the scares in this movie, I think the scares are done very, very well. There's something very effective about how they pull them off and how they do them. I think, yes, there is jump scares in this movie, but they're not the cheap jump scares. They're something that's really effective more to the movie. You will see what you need to see, or you'll see something subtle, and it's not one of those cheap jump scares of, the cat jumped out of the cupboard, or, something falls in the corner and there's nothing there. It really goes for what it's trying to say. And when you get one of those jump scares, it's very prevalent to what is going on in the movie or something that's going to, eventually come forth in the movie or whatnot, if that makes any sense. So it's very just there. There's none of that cheap jump scare gimmick. And like I said, it's done in a way that even though we kind of, as horror fans, we kind of know when to expect, jump scares from time to time, they're done in this way to where they kind of catch you off guard a little bit. There are certain jump scares that have the traditional, yes, the music swells down and then boom, there's something there. But then it has subtle moments to where when the music is going, the music doesn't really fade off. It'll fade down like you're going to expect a jump scare. But then on the other hand, it kind of starts playing mellow music and kind of takes you off guard a little bit. And then bam, there's something that's there. So the way that they do it really subtly, and there's even a great scene that got me really good that I was not expecting. It's like Adam Scott just walking through this. It's just going from one transition to another where he's going from the bathroom back to the living room to the bedroom. And the way it follows him walking and him just walking back in the shot, there's something right there behind him. And it got me so good. So there's just little subtle moments like that, but they're so done and so very well effective. I also enjoy the scares that are not really the jump scares, the ones that's kind of just there and lets you linger on things. I've talked about in reviews on this channel before that I love the type of horror with the wide open negative space, and there's something there, there's something that's not there, you don't know, and stuff like that. There is a little bit of that in this movie. I wish there was a little bit more. I'll get into that later on, but as for the most part, what they do with it, I think it's very well effective, because the scenes where they do have like negative space, even though it's not a lot of it, it is still very effective with what it's going for. There are just scenes where our character will be doing something, and he's really focusing on what he's doing, and then out of nowhere you'll either see something pass by him or something will be standing right there, and it's just so quick that you don't really know how to react to it. So it is very effective with what it's trying to do. And even there's a great shot in the beginning of the movie where Adam Scott is, alone in his apartment, and it's just a huge, wide open negative space where, you're looking around his apartment. It's just completely black with like the little light that he has on, and you can see a silhouette in the stairway. And it is, right, like I said, right from the beginning, it's just creepy as hell. There are some great tracking shots where it'll pan around certain things where it shows like stuff from Adam Scott's point of view. So when he's looking a certain way, you'll look with him, and it's one of those things where you have to really look. You're like, was there something actually there, or am I just seeing stuff? And I love movies that do that, because it makes the rewatchability so much better, and this is one that I'm dying to already rewatch. I think our lead performance by Adam Scott, he does a really good job. He's coming back to the horror genre, and I think he's very, very great in this movie, to the point to where he's really like this non-likable, smart-ass, just asshole pretty much throughout this entire movie. And he does stuff that you're like, man, I don't know if I can get on board with this guy, or why should I give a shit about this guy? But he has such a certain charm about him that you kind of still want to follow along with him. That, and it gets wrapped up in this mystery that is happening throughout this hotel, that you're kind of on board for that as well. So you're kind of really on board more for the mystery than really liking his character. But with that said, as the movie goes on, you start to uncover stuff about his past and things that happened to him that kind of you realize why he is the way that he is. So you start to kind of get some sympathy for him. You start to really feel that about him. And as the movie gets near the conclusion, you're really hooked into his character, where you're like, yeah, I don't want to see nothing happen to him. I really would like to see him get out of this. One of the other things I really enjoyed about this movie was that, just like in the same vein as Damien McCarthy's other two films, there is a lot to say in this movie. He has a lot of layers and a lot of stuff that he's trying to say and tell, and he does a great job with that. He does it in such a subtle way that you can watch this movie as a straight horror movie and be like, that's cool, or you can really kind of dive into it and really take stuff out of it. And really, that's, like I said, that's with all of his movies. I think all three of his movies you can walk out of and really have a conversation about what you took from a character, or what you think that meant, or what that symbolized. And really, most of his movies have a really pretty deep meaning to them. I mean, even though all the scares and all the monsters, creatures, ghosts, whatever you want to call them in his movies, are really prevalent and really like there and in your face, he does a really great job of holding a mirror up to the audience and being like, you know what, even with all that, these are the real monsters of the world and stuff like that. And it's very much prevalent in this movie as well. I'm trying to tiptoe around stuff because I don't want to give anything away. He does a great job of really pulling that off and really just letting that sit with you and really having you think on it. There's a few things I thought about on the way home that made me really enjoy this movie even more. And it's another reason I really can't wait to go back and rewatch it again. I also really love the lighting in this movie. I think the lighting is fantastic. I love how they shoot the hotel, the hallways of the hotel, the rooms of the hotel, where he's in this honeymoon suite at one point in time, how they just go about shooting all that stuff to where it's almost like either they had like, it's a lantern, or they have these really dim lights in the hallway, or they have to use lighters at some point. All of the lighting is done perfectly, and it makes the scares so much more effective. Like, there is a scare at some point where someone's trying to see something with a lighter, and the way that it's done is it's not like completely in your face, but it's so effective with how like nonchalant it is. It's not like a big boom effect and it's there. It's so quiet and really just pops up that it really kind of takes you by surprise, but it's just so effective with really how the lighting is set up. And with that being said, I think, this movie obviously involves some kind of witch, and which is great because we never really get a lot of great witch movies anymore, so I was for that. But like in this movie, the way they go about lighting the witch, for example, when you do see her, it's never straight on, full-blown light and stuff, and I cannot stand when movies do that because it kind of takes away the creepiness effect of it, or what you had in your head of what that creature, that ghost, or whatever it was going to look like. It really does a bad job of really taking that away, because most of the time it's not executed correctly, or really the way that you hoped it would be, or it's really too CGI heavy. In this movie, it's perfect. They use it. They keep her in the darkness. They keep her with like 1-watt bulbs. They keep her with you see her in certain ways that you cannot fully see her face. And it is so much more effective that way. And my God, is it creepy as hell. Even when you see the bunny thing, or whatever, the bunny man thing that is in this movie, which is absolute nightmare fuel, but even when you see that thing in this movie, there's something about that is so nonchalant. I mean, that's more obviously in your face, but even the way they go about lighting that and choosing how they show that is very effective and very creepy. Speaking of, because of that thing, literally, I was driving home last night. It was one of those things when I was driving home where I was starting to look in the back of my car to make sure that thing wasn't there. And of course, when I got home, there was a shirt hanging up in the laundry room downstairs. About damn near shit myself. So you can easily say that this movie is effective and is very good with what it's trying to say in the scare department. It's the same with the sound design. I think the sound design is just as great in this movie. I think they choose where to put music. They choose where they want to put the jump scares. But like I said, then they try to dial it back and make things, calm and collective, like it's trying to catch you off guard, and then bam, something will happen. But they also choose silence at great times, too. There are certain moments in this movie where it is complete silence, and it is so unnerving because all you can hear is the wind howling outside. You can hear every floorboard creak, every door opening, everything, and you're just sitting there just just waiting for something to happen. And it just keeps building all that with that perfect sound design. And I love it. I think like I said, they chose where to put certain music and where to choose to be silent. And even the music they chose, it really sets the scene and really, really amps up the scare. But my God, when they chose to be silent, its silence is truly deafening. And it's the same like I mentioned earlier about the setting. I love the setting of this isolated hotel, literally in the middle of nowhere. It does a great job kind of at the beginning how out of the way Adam Scott has to go, and kind of deep in the woods that really all this takes place, and so really how far out and isolated you really are. I think Ireland is a very beautiful country, and it's somewhere I've always wanted to visit. But there is something the way that Damien McCarthy portrays them in all of his movies that are just downright terrifying. I love that setting of isolation, you're in this area on your own, and it also creates this great bottleneck movie where it's just so much tension, and it helps add to the tension because you're there and you're just there by yourself, especially when stuff happens later on in the movie. I'm not going to spoil anything. When it goes a certain way, it makes you feel even more isolated and even more trapped, not only from the loneliness and just being out in this wide open area of nowhere, but like I said, just with stuff that happens later on, it just adds something else to that feeling of just feeling trapped and hopeless. I love the idea of folklore in movies as well. I think there's so much folklore in the world from different countries and just all over the place that I love hearing about different folklore. And this movie does a really great job at the beginning of talking about this folklore, this witch in the woods and the things that she'll do and whatnot, and it's really effective. It's a really great story to get you really hooked on to what's happening. So not only are you kind of really pulled into the story of the folklore, but when that mystery happens on top of it, it's like a double whammy because you know where they're trying to go with the mystery, or where they have to go with the mystery, and what Adam Scott's character has to do to kind of proceed for this mystery to go forward. But you also have that in the back of your mind about that folklore aspect of it. And it just adds more creepiness and tension because you're you don't know what you're going to see or what you're going to encounter out of this. And I love that because it's the same way with urban legends or anything like that. It's different from everybody, but it's one of those things you just really never know what you're going to, discover or see or anything like that in the movie. And it really sets expectations a lot in this movie. And like I said, when he's going to a certain place that he needs to go in this hotel, I'm not going to give anything away again, it does a great job of really fleshing all that stuff out and letting you see some stuff and lets the mystery dive deeper and deeper. And it's just not only that, but it's just really great storytelling. This was just one of those movies that from the beginning, it just hooks you in. It's, like I said, there's something so creepy even at the beginning of the movie that hooks you in and really just keeps you on board for this ride. And it goes all the way through to the end and just able to keep the tension, to keep the scares, to keep you so interested. And like I said, when it hooks you in with that mystery as well, it's just another flavor added on top of it that, like I said, overall, it's just very good writing, very good storytelling, and beautifully directed. I think there's certain shots that he does in this movie when it comes to him having to do certain things in a certain room, or having to get on certain things in rooms and whatnot like that, where you go to different parts of the hotel. The way they go about shooting that, again, that with the lighting mixed in with it, beautifully looking movie, and like I said, it's just great storytelling. All right, this next part, I'm going to try to tiptoe around as much as I can and be as vague as I can about it because I don't want to give anything away. There is a certain part in this movie that I saw where a lot of people were kind of off about because they felt like it really didn't push the story forward anymore. It was just kind of a setup for all these scares to happen and take place. And yes, I can totally see that being the case, but for me, I was so invested in his character and, again, the story, the mystery element of the story, and what he was going to experience, and maybe what he was going to learn about himself along the way, because there's a lot of that in this movie as well, that I was still on board for that. Like, I was never bored with it. And like I said, I can totally see how people are saying that, he's put here just for these scares to happen for this amount of time. And it's like a showcase for the scares. I understand that, but for me, I just took something different out of it, or I got something different out of it for that matter. So it was one of those things that really worked for me, but it might be a mixed thing for a lot of people because they might feel the same way. They're like, oh, we got this story going and all this stuff is happening, and then all of a sudden now we're at this point to where Adam Scott is kind of stuck in this one place, so we can insert all these scares and whatnot. I can see that being a thing, but I don't know. For me, it really worked. One of my mixed elements, and I'm going to put it in the mixed thing more than a negative because it's really more of a nitpick than anything else, is that I wish we got more of the negative space element when it came to certain scares. Like I said in the beginning of the review, I love the scares. I think the scares are really well effective. There is a few scenes where we get that negative space and it's just that wide open and lets you kind of look around a little bit. I wish we got a little bit more of that because that is the type of scares that truly unnerve the shit out of me, to where I'm always looking around. It's one of those things where I'm always looking for scares. It's either right around the corner or in this room, or you might see a hand or a head or something like that here. And while we do get those, and they are here and they're present, there just wasn't enough of that for me. And like I said, but it kind of counterbalances itself because all the other scares were just as effective and were just as creepy. And I was on the edge of my seat just as much as I was watching those, really tense moments if it was a bunch of negative space throughout it. But the ones that we do get in here, I'm happy with those, and they're just as effective as the rest of the scares. But especially keeping me on the edge of my seat and keeping me wanting more. So they did a great job even with that. I just wish we had just a little bit more of them. Because in my opinion, there are 2 or 3 scenes in my head that I remember seeing this movie that I was thinking to myself, man, if they would have done that here, if they would have put one of those type of shots here and let you linger on it for a minute, I think it would have been more effective than what it was. But, kudos to what they did, because still, even what they pulled off was still just as effective. So if you can't already tell, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was super solid and really effective in everything that it was trying to go for. I think it pulled off everything that it was trying to go for. And we're starting out May. If this is the first movie of May, I just hope every movie keeps living up to this potential, if not going even further than this movie, because that means if that's the case, May is going to be one hell of a month, especially if you're a horror fan. We're going to be eating good this month. So Hokum is absolutely worth your time and money to go check it out in the theater because it is a solid movie. If you love mysteries, you'll really enjoy this movie. It really gets under your skin with the scares. The scares are super effective, and they do it in a way that really stay with you and stick with you, while also having a little bit of that commentary about stuff going on with Adam Scott and stuff in general that I mentioned earlier that's just as effective. And it's a great conversation starter for the way home, so you guys can try to pick apart stuff that's really cool. So I cannot recommend this movie enough. And I cannot recommend enough, if you haven't seen his other 2 films, Oddity and Caveat, please go check both of them out. I think both of them are now available on Shudder. I think you can buy both of them as well on VOD, but they are just as effective, they are just as creepy, and they have, again, all have that great story to them. So please go check them out as well. Thank you, everybody. That is my review for Hokum. If this is the review that you're finding me on, please come over to the channel and check out all my other reviews for the year so far. I have quite a bit. And I would love to know if you have seen Hokum. Please comment below and let me know what you thought about the movie. And if there are any really great witch movies out there, maybe some that are underrated or a little bit unseen, please comment below and let me know what they are, because I would love to see more like witch movies or in that horror genre, because I just don't feel like we get a lot of them nowadays, or a lot of really effective ones. So That's a genre that I wish would kind of come back, as those effective, like, kind of witch movies again. So if you've seen any, please comment below and let me know what are some really good ones, and I'll happily check those out. And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That way I can see all of you in the next one. Thank you so very, very much.